Welcome back to Unpacking Success. Today I have somebody who was once a complete stranger and is now somebody who I consider a really good friend. And so today we're going to dive into a subject that's really important to me because I have experienced it and I continue to go through it every day. And so Arjun, before we get into it, thanks so much for being here.
I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for making it work on your end too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we're here in San Francisco. At the time of this recording, we're actually getting prepared for one of Arjun's events, the Better Human Project. We're going to get into that. But before we do, this podcast is all about success. And so before we get into it, describe your definition of success.
It's progress. It's not anything that can be valued with some type of end game or a certain dollar amount. It's different for everyone. But I think if people are focused on progress and continuing to move forward and evolving, ultimately there's success in every one of those steps.
Yeah.
And many of those steps may lead you to a big place of success.
Yeah.
But there is micro success in every step of progress. So that's what I feel it is.
Yeah. So one thing I want to jump into and talk about during this episode is the things that people very rarely talk about when it comes to success. And it's the things that happen behind the scenes. And it's the things that people struggle with while achieving success. Or maybe they've achieved success and they struggle with these different things. Mm-hmm. And so a question that I want to ask you is, what is a sacrifice you've made for success that is something you regret?
A sacrifice that I actually regret? I don't think there's been any, because I've recognized early on that anything that we're in pursuit of is going to come at the expense of something else. So people think, oh, you can have balance when you're doing things. And I'll relate this to just like my competing days as an athlete. Mm-hmm. When I'm competing or getting ready and I flip the switch to go from what I call training shape to peak shape, try and maintain training shape year round so you don't fall out of shape. So you stay right here. And then when you need to flip the switch to go to here because you have 10 weeks, you have a 10-week camp to get ready for a world championships or a World Cup. When I do that, like I go under the hood, and no one's going to hear from me for a bit. So my personal life, at the time when I was doing it, I was single. So I don't have a dating life. Yeah. I don't have a social life. I don't see many friends. I go to work, I train, I come home and eat, I meditate, I journal, I do the same thing again the next day. And that's just the sacrifice you have to make.
Right.
A lot of people think that when you're in pursuit of something, you can still maintain everything else on the stove at equal levels or whatever it is. But, the expression, you got to back burner some things, you got to turn some heat off. Like there's only a certain amount to go around because time and energy is finite.
Yeah.
So accepting that when you get into it and know that certain things are going to take a hit.
Yeah.
For success and like all the projects and things I do, like even this, it comes at the expense of maybe some Saturday afternoons with the family because I come into this office to work on some things. Right. Or if I'm on the phone late, that means I'm spending less time with my wife, right? At the end of the day when we could be kind of debriefing and talking to each other about what happened today. So it always comes at the expense of something. I can't say that I've had any regret because I know what I sign up for every time. I know when I embark on something else is going to suffer.
Yeah.
So I've already made that deal with myself. I've reconciled it. I've accepted it. Doesn't mean I like it.
Right.
But I've accepted it.
Yeah.
And I can move forward with that.
Yeah.
And I think if more people accept that, they'll find that there's harmony. There's not necessarily balance. Harmony is getting it all to just work together, even if it's out of whack.
Yep.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah. So that's something that I reference you all the time when I'm talking about this because people will ask me that we'll be in a conversation and they'll be like, man, work-life balance. How do you achieve that? And you mentioned that one time you were talking about there is real no balance. It's harmony. Yeah. So explain more on like why you think that, because when you explained it once in maybe one of your socials or a conversation that we had.
Might have been a podcast episode. It's basically that, what I just told you. Like it's
right.
Whatever you're in pursuit of will come at the expense of something else.
Right.
So there's no doing it in balance. Like I can't maintain a perfect social life and family life while having this work life when I'm trying to achieve this great thing.
Let me ask you this. So what if you have maybe family? What if you have friends? What if you have a social life that is not comfortable with you making those sacrifices?
Well, I think that is something everyone's going to encounter because they don't have the maniacal eyes that you do. They're never going to see it through the same lens.
Right.
To them, it's very objective. Yeah. Oh, he's spending so little time with his family. Yep. He's a terrible dad. He's a terrible entrepreneur. He went out on his own. He gave up a full-time gig to go start some pipe dream.
Yep.
How irresponsible of him, and he has a kid.
Yeah.
They don't see it through you. You don't see it that way.
Yeah.
I don't see it that way. So I think to expect that anyone's going to be in alignment with you or in agreement or support you, even blindly, is naive.
Yeah.
If you're making some people kind of raise an eyebrow and say, why is he or she doing it? You're probably doing it right. Because if you're maniacal about it, like I said, and you see things so audaciously and so big and so unrealistic almost, at least on paper, but you're just willing it to happen, or you're pushing so hard for it to happen, and you're going to create this. You've manifested it, whatever. And to everyone else, it's a pipe dream, but to you, this is my fucking vision. I'm going to see it through. Or be damned if I don't. They're all going to think you're nuts. No one's going to agree with you. They're all going to say that you're a terrible person or you're a bad, because they will see the sacrifices you're making and immediately equate that to you not having your priorities in order. You, on the other hand, know, because of what I said, that what you signed up for, you know that you've made these sacrifices. You've made your deal with it. You've made your bed. You're going to sleep in it. You also know it's not a state of permanence because you're playing the long game. Right? You're doing this because you want a better life or you want the freedom later. So I can suffer now. It's like Muhammad Ali said when he would train, like, I knew training would suck, but I figured if I suffered now, I'd live the rest of my time as a champion. Right? It's true. He suffered immensely, and he's like an icon, right? He's someone we all talk about still to this day. Like his contribution outlives us.
So we had talked a lot about burning the ships. And side note for anybody listening or watching, Arjun was very influential in me making the jump from a safe career, great benefits, great pay, all the safe things that everybody says that you should do. I left that, jumped into my own ship, and it's been the greatest thing ever for me. And you were a huge part of that. I tell people that all the time. Like, I tell my family that, like, you don't even know this guy. Like, I'll tell my family, you don't even know this guy, but he was so instrumental when it came to making the leap into what I do now, which I love. And so for that, number one, I thank you. But one of the conversations that we had, I remember where I was, I remember what vehicle I was driving in, I remember what building I was at. And you had talked about burning the ships. And again, for some people, maybe they don't understand. But if you're listening to this podcast or if you're watching it, then you're here for a reason. You're here because you want to grow in your business. You want to make a leap into your own business, whatever the case may be. Discuss that concept of burning the ships the way we had that conversation.
Well, it's basically saying that there's no plan B. I heard Chris Gardner, the guy who the movie The Pursuit of Happiness was based on, the real life character. I heard him say this a few times. Then we had a little bit of a side chat about it, that everybody's got a dream, but what's the plan? What is the actual plan of how we're going to fucking get this done? Am I all right to cuss on your podcast? Of course I am.
All
right, let's go, right? So what's the fucking plan?
Yeah.
The dream is only so is only so cool. It's like a New Year's resolution.
Right.
But it never gets accomplished because there was no plan.
Right.
A New Year's resolution is a dream until you actually make it happen, right? Or take some action. So it's the same thing. Everyone's got a dream, but what's the actual plan? Because if you have a plan and you're so maniacal about it and you're obsessed with it, there is no plan B, because plan B sucks. So when I say you're burning the boats, and I remember talking to you about this. We've had a few conversations. You told me, like, I'm doing this thing and, it's a big risk. I'm like, no, I mean, it'll work. It's going to work, right? If you go in with both feet and you don't leave the door open to exit or whatever, like, you make the commitment, then there's only upside. You're only going to win. And that's why I say burn the boats, because if you're going to take the island, that's a Tony Robbins expression. If you're going to take the island, you burn the boats, because we're not leaving this island unless we own it, or unless we're running it. Or we're going to die trying. So that's it. There is no like, oh, we left and we tried our best. No, it's either I did it or I didn't. But I'm on the island no matter what.
As people make the leap, or as they try to grow and really scale what they're doing, or like I said, just start something new, there are things that happen along the journey. Like in the beginning, you're all fired up. You're motivated. You're like, I'm going to burn the ships. I'm going to take the island. I'm going to do all these things. But then you hit a point of, I'm tired. And I'm drained and I don't know where else to go. Maybe something bad happens. Now, I want to talk about something about you specifically. I want to ask you a question. Describe one of the darkest moments in your life, whether it was business, personal, whatever it may be. And how did you climb out of that?
I think what you described is inevitable for everybody, especially as an entrepreneur. Because entrepreneurship, it's very lonely. You don't get any wins. There's nothing to celebrate. You work, you get your shins kicked in. There's no like rewards for it at the end of the day. Like, I put in all this time and then boom, there's a check. Or boom, there's a new client. Or boom, there's an opportunity. You could be doing everything, grinding to the point where you're like down to the bone, you know, with your fingers, or you've worn your teeth out from just, you know, from just chewing on your fist because you're just so tense about it, and doing it for 4 years with nothing. And then boom, all of a sudden the 5th or 6th or 7th year, like everything hits. Yeah. So you could be doing all this stuff and it's hard, man. Yeah. It's really hard. And
well, give us a personal experience.
Yeah. That's what I was just going to segue into. So I recognize that. And I know I've had plenty of them, but I'll just say even athletically, like I'll go back to when I lost in 2012, but the loss ended up being the best thing that happened to me. Yeah. There's no way I won in 2007, took some time off, lost in 2012. And I said, this will probably be my last one. I'll just do it one more time. And I lost. And I'd prepared well. We'd done everything. It just didn't, sometimes it just doesn't work out. Yeah. And it was crushing in so many ways, but it was dark and it was normal to question things. It's normal to like second guess yourself. Was I even really that good? Yeah. Like you hit all these things and you ask all these questions and then you kind of find yourself in this like in between. And then there's an opportunity of, do I press ahead or do I just say, that's it? That's the end of the story. Yeah. So I think for everyone, when you get to that point of either feeling burnt out or you hit a wall or like, man, this is getting tougher, you got to ask yourself. And when you ask yourself, the fuel that's actually going to help you push through all comes down to purpose. What was the mission here? If it was something very superficial and almost like kind of self-serving or selfish, it wasn't part of something bigger, you will burn out. Yeah. And you'll probably either quit or you'll half-ass it from that point later because your energy towards this is just not going to be as serious or as intense. Yeah. For me, it was that I refused to let that last one define me. So whatever happens at this one, I'm going to go all out, win, lose, or draw, but I'm going to take it up even more notches. And I gave my all on the last one. I still to this day in 2012 can't go back and say, oh, I would have done this different. Yeah. No, we left it all on the table. It just didn't work out. That's why I had peace with it. Yeah. Didn't mean I liked it. Right. I didn't sleep any better with it, but I had peace because there's nothing worse than the regret of knowing you could have done more. Right. In entrepreneurship, in life, or with that relationship or work. So I already knew that. But I gave this, I knew the next go around, I'm going to give this even more. We're going to dig even deeper and do it even better. Yeah. There's always a way to do it better and improve and take it up a notch. And then wherever the cards fall, they fall. But the purpose for me and the mission behind it in 2014, because it was in the memory of my friend who had committed suicide. And it was back in the city. It was being hosted in the city that we promised we would go back to as adults. So I was going to keep this promise. So there was already this big emotional part of the story for me that was like really fueling me. And it would, when I was running laps around the track, or I was working out late, or I was like so exhausted I couldn't lift another weight or throw another kick on the bag, or just put in my cardio, I would think about him. I'm like, no, we got one more. We're gonna do one more. We're gonna keep going because this is for him. I'm gonna see that kind of purpose or that kind of fuel. When you have something of who or what you're doing something for, that's how you'll push through the burnout. If you don't have that, you'll hit the burnout and you'll just fizzle out because it was never a real thing, a real mission. You were just hoping it would, maybe there's a part of you, and there's a lot of people who accomplish without that. They're still able to accomplish in spite of not having a real mission. And that's because it maybe came a little easier. Maybe they were just destined to do well. Maybe they were just over-talented for the moment and they were just going to achieve regardless. But if you want to have staying power, you're doing something that's hard, it's going to require a little bit more than just you executing. That purpose, that mission, that why, the who. People misperceive that your why is the same thing, but it's not. Right. There's a why and a who. Who is who you do. People say my kids are my why, my family's my why. No, that's your who. Your why is very different. Your why is personal. Your why is dark. Yeah. It's like, no, it's the demon. It's the 8-year-old that got, in my 8-year-old self that got bullied. Yeah. Or it was the 10-year-old that was talked down to by this teacher that said, you'll never amount to shit. Whatever. Those aren't my stories, but for everyone listening, you've got something and that's why you do it. Who is different. Yeah. Who is happy. Right. Why gets a little darker. Why is what you got to tap into when you're ready to puke or you say, fuck it. Yeah. Who is when you get up in the morning and you're getting ready to go out and do something because you start your day off with gratitude and you start in a very positive, euphoric place. Yeah. When it gets dark, that's when you go to the why. And you got to have both.
This is why I love this guy, is that you could be just randomly having a conversation and then all of a sudden you're fired up and want to go fight somebody or something. But
yeah, we can. In San Francisco, we can step outside and go beep. There's plenty of street fight opportunities here with homeless guys, whatever. Yeah.
No, but it's so true. It's something that more people need to hear. It's something that I need to hear more consistently because, you know, I'm at a place now and I've been in a place before, even up until recently, where it's like, sometimes you have to dig a little deeper to find that why again, you know, because things may get easy. you may have built, and then you get a little relaxed, and then things.
That's when you got to get worried. When
right.
it's starting to feel easy is when you should get nervous.
Now, there's something that, like I said, I've experienced even up until recently that I've been battling with myself, which is peace and success, are they at odds with each other? So, and again, whether your definition of success is making a lot of money or driving the nice cars or living in the nice homes or being able to travel or build the biggest Lego set, it doesn't matter what your definition of success is. But if you're trying to chase that, is peace in life and in your soul and success, are they at odds with each other?
I think they're at tremendous odds. And for most people, they are. There's classic examples of it, but a lot of people that you see that are very, very successful. And when you say peace, I think of peace of mind.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I want my mind, my soul to be at peace and just know that I'm like okay with the man I see in the mirror, right? The reflection. I think most successful people sadly don't have that peace because they are estranged from their kids. They haven't talked to them maybe in years, or they've got a son that they are disconnected from because they went all in on this career or this thing. And look, these people are geniuses in their own way. They may not be family role models, but there's a lot of them. We don't have to name names. A lot of them are in the public eye right now, front and center on a lot of headlines. But when you look closer, like that person doesn't even have, like he doesn't even talk to his kids anymore. I don't like, and some people are okay with that. It's not to be critical of them. To each their own. For me personally, I know for you because you're a family man, and I see how committed and devoted of a father and husband you are and a son. That's not okay with us. Could be okay with other people. So I think peace and success are generally at odds. Some of it, I think, comes down to if I have to comment on it or give my opinion. Some of it, I think, comes down to the whole incongruency or the imbalance. Like I said, I think sometimes they recognize, and obviously they're taking it to a different extreme, that there's no way this is going to be balanced, and they're like 100-0. Not like 60-40 or 70-30 or 90-10. They're like 100 and 0. Like, fuck everything else. Look, to each their own, and that's the way their mind works. And I think some of the most creative and just high-performing geniuses that have transformed and reshaped how the world is, how humanity is, whatever, there's a high element or a high degree of that in those people's persona. But it's just a matter of what kind of life you want to live. But I think they're at odds with each other. I definitely think they're at odds with each other. If you happen to be one of those people that does have peace of mind and is okay with whatever you do, you've got a different kind of success. It may not show up on the bottom. Maybe it does. And there are some people out there that do have that. They're completely content as family figures, as heads of households or spouses or whatever role they play. They're as present as anyone. And they've got a high degree of success. Could they have more success? Yes. It's never ending.
That's what I was going to pivot into is do you think that in order to have that peace with your family, with yourself, with your community, with the people around you, do you think that you have to accept achieving less in your professional life or whatever you're trying to achieve success in?
I think, in the spirit of what's happening tomorrow, and I'm going to say this tomorrow, and nobody's really heard this because I figured it was going to weave into my keynote at some point, but I guess you're going to get a sneak preview of it right now. That is, I'm going to just speak personally.
Yeah, please.
I don't give two shits about how much money I die with. The who's of what I'm doing something for are my two daughters. I asked this of all my podcast guests, most of my podcast guests. If we get really deep or it's an emotional episode, I ask them a question at the end. When you die, and I'm not talking about how many people show up at your funeral, whether it's 5,000 or 5. Your kids, your grandkids, your nieces and nephews, maybe you don't have kids. Maybe it's just the people that were kind of close to you or looking after you. If there's one word you want them to remember you by, what is it? What's the word? Everyone should have this. Because when people are like, because somebody asked me when I launched the event, the Better Human Project, like, what does it mean to be a better human? I'm like, that's a different definition for everyone. I'll give you mine. And I asked them this question. Because when you die, what do you want to be remembered by? The only thing I give a shit about is that my daughters know their father was kind. It's the only thing I give a fuck about. That's it. If I do that, if I leave this earth and that's how they always remember their dad and they carry that forth with their children and the people that they're touched and they're going to impact, I've done my job. And that was a wildly successful life. Wildly successful. It's not, it has nothing to do with money or whatever. The money comes. It comes and goes. Right? And if you're a kind person, I tend to believe that a lot of opportunities and money will come your way anyways. So that's just me. But
Yeah.
for everyone I ask them, figure out what that one word is. And everything you do in life should have some congruency in moving towards that one word. Yes, you're a human being, you'll fall off track. We all do. We
Yeah.
get a little messy, we get off base, we lose our way. You find it again and keep moving towards it. But if that you find that one word, you etch it into your heart and into your mind, and you move for however many days you have left on this earth, you're moving towards that word to make sure that that's how I'm remembered.
Yeah.
You're going to be a good person.
Yeah.
You will have all, as far as I'm concerned, that is a very successful and full life.
Yeah. It's really interesting that you brought that up, because I was talking to these guys before we started recording, and one of the last questions I was going to ask you was, what's something you hope people say about you at your funeral?
It's just that he was kind. That's the only thing I care about.
Yeah.
It came from my grandmother, who was the kindest human being I ever knew in my life, my mom's mom. And I learned a lot of lessons from her about giving and being in service to other people at a very, very young age. It had a profound impact on me.
Yeah.
That's very hard to describe at times, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
And so it just, that's always been it. I know for some people it's that I want to be remembered as the guy who changed the world.
Yeah.
Or the person who helped so many people.
Yeah.
Or the guy who invented something.
Yep.
Or created this. Or was the richest guy from my family.
Yeah.
You know? Some just want to be remembered as a good whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that this is a really good thing to touch on. And for you watching or listening, it's important that you actually reflect on this, because like, even for me, I don't have that set in stone. Even for me, I go through different things, especially being a friend, a son, a husband, a dad. You know, like I have my River, my son, looking up at me, and he's like the sweetest, kindest kid. And so how do I implement that like in his soul? Because he's innately kind. The kid is innately kind.
Yeah, because his father's kind. He might have been born with something, but things are learned and modeled for kids in the households and the homes they grow up in. So the fact that he has kind parents, I've never met your wife, but I'm presuming she's kind, otherwise you wouldn't be married to her. But I know how kind of a man you are.
Yeah.
And you know, you're a good human being. You're a fantastic human being. Yeah. Of course the apple's not gonna fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
Of course. Especially during these young formative years.
Right.
Now it's your job as a dad to make sure you stay on track, because every child has the opportunity to lose their way.
Right.
If that mentorship or father figure is not around at key times during formative years, important times. But I don't think that's by accident, man. I mean, he might innately have been, or like, you know, kind of inherently had some traits that he was born with, God-given traits.
Right.
And bless him for that.
Yeah.
But no, man, it's not an accident that your son's kind.
Well, I appreciate it. He's, you know, and talking about, I really liked how you broke down the who versus the why. You know, because for a lot of people, when you ask them, well, what is your why? Why do you wake up early? Why do you work so hard? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? And it's my wife and my kids, or my husband and my kids, or whatever. And it's like, to your point, it's almost like, well, that's also your responsibility. So if you don't do that, then you're kind of failing them just as being there for them as a dad or a husband or a wife or whatever it may be.
Yeah, you do a huge disservice to them.
Right. So that's kind of like that's like what you should already be doing, you know, and then, but the why is completely different. So I really like that. Now, as we, you know, get deeper into the conversation around somebody could be pursuing success right now, and they maybe have been doing it for 6 months, 6 years, whatever the case may be. And for some people, and I can talk about this personally, you get to a point where it's like, am I good enough for this? Mm-hmm. Am I good enough for another level? Am I good enough for the success that I see myself achieving? Talk personally for a second about a time in your life, professionally or personally, where you just felt like you weren't good enough.
That's a really good question. I think during 2008, during the market crash, I'll pivot to like professionally.
Yeah.
Because you literally like the ground shook, right? Like everything crumbled to the ground in our industries, mortgage, real estate, title, all of it.
Yep.
So there was this like questioning period for those of us that genuinely enjoyed what we did. There was a lot of people that were just in it for the fast money. So when the crash happened, they were just looking for the next thing. There was no remorse or reflection on what had happened.
Yeah.
It was just like, this sucks. Well, we got to find something new to do.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, and don't get me wrong, there was times when I was wondering, like, I probably need to do something else. I don't know what the future is going to be like here, but there was a lot of me that felt really bad and affected by this because we'd put in so much. And, and I'm talking my brother and I and another business partner that had started things. But there was without a doubt a point at which you look, I think it's human too.
Right.
When things crumble when you fall, when you lose, right? Or you have a major setback. It is natural. And it's actually, I think it's very important that you have that moment of asking, was I good enough?
Yeah.
Or was I even that good? Or like, am I even deserving of this? You know? And I think you need to do that and a bit of soul searching in that space in order to kind of recalibrate and evaluate this loss, this setback, this failure, because every loss is an opportunity. And this is cliche and so many people understand this, but very few practice it.
Yeah.
That expression of when people would lose and they'd interview a coach or someone, like, it's back to the drawing board or to an executive.
Yeah.
People would just say that, but they wouldn't actually mean it. They would just get back in the gym or get back to behind the desk or get to the conference room and just start working harder. That's fine. And then sometimes that works to correct it. But unless we analyze this thing for what it was and figure out what tweaks, because oftentimes, and you know this very well, the difference between succeeding and missing is so small. So it's not like you got to overhaul everything or get back and work 50 times harder. We might have to adjust just a couple of things, a couple of millimeters this way on the dial or that way, and the result could have been entirely different.
Right.
So analyzing your losses, accepting that setback now or whatever it is, in the time that you're questioning yourself, was I good? It's okay. You're going to go through that. It's kind of like a step of grief.
Right.
But then say, okay, what could we have done differently? What would have made this result turn out totally the opposite way? And most of the time, the answers are there. If you really are honest with yourself, they're right there, and they're really small.
Yeah.
It's not some, holy shit, we got to do this. We got to hire 10 more people, or I got to get this coach and that trainer, or implement this huge strategy. If you're speaking or the answers are huge things, then you are really off, and the approach needs to be completely revamped.
Right.
But for most people that are putting in the right effort with the right folks, and the cause is noble, whatever they're in pursuit of, starting a company, being an entrepreneur, whatever it is, that miss is so small, and if it's evaluated and acknowledged, and you underwrite it, re-underwrite it, and and apply it, the result will be totally different with your next at bat.
Now that's powerful. Now, the last couple of questions here, this is something that's important to me to find out from you. Have you ever achieved something that you thought would make you happy, but you achieved it and then you still felt empty afterwards?
Success without fulfillment, right? This is another thing, and it's the best example of it. I mean, I heard this in a story, and it really had an impact on me, and then I related it to myself, because there was a story about most of the astronauts on the original Apollo missions that went to the moon or did space orbits or whatever. Came back and ended up as either drug addicts, alcoholics, suicidal, whatever. Why? I mean, these people just accomplished something that none of us will get the opportunity to. They hit the pinnacle. They went to the moon. Well, it's because there was nothing else after that. The success was so short-lived because there was never any true mission behind it or purpose. So there was no level of fulfillment. It was just, I got to check this box and do it. And then you think everything's going to be great. It's why you'll hear of a Super Bowl champ or an athlete that does really well, and then they turn into an alcoholic, or they get into womanizing, they turn to drugs, or they get into fast car, like they turn into basically a degenerative lifestyle. It's because it was never about the win. Success actually opened up and exposed them for what they are, which was a flawed human being that wasn't working on themselves. Right. So I think, to bring it back, like, this whole success without fulfillment, I can say on a personal level, would have come definitely during those run-ups to 2008, where money was being made so easy and so fast. There was no fulfillment attached to any of that money. And look, at the end of the day, how's a 20-something-year-old going to feel fulfilled by making money? They're just going to keep blowing it. Buying nice cars, flying first class here and there, bottle service at nightclubs. We did it all, So there was no real fulfillment attached to it. That's the example I can give you. I've, though, been very mindful, and I don't have any better examples for you in my 30s and 40s, because I've been highly, highly aware and mindful of the fact that everything I'm doing, because there's the mission, there's the why, the who, it's all clearly defined why we're doing it. And win, lose, or draw, I'm at peace with whatever's going to happen here. Knowing that I've put forth everything I can, and I've left nothing untouched, and, or, without effort. I've applied myself where I can everywhere, and I'm at peace with it. So I've gone about everything in these later, 30 and 40s, doing that. So we're not achieving anything without fulfillment, because I don't ever want to feel like that, ever. I think that's a really, really shit empty feeling. And I think everyone can experience it. No one's immune to it. You're going to have it at some phase of your life, but you got to learn from it, because if you're continually having successes and feeling that pit like you're talking about, or where it just doesn't feel good, or like it feels like, oh, I thought this would be a lot cooler.
Yeah.
I thought getting to the mountaintop or making more money than all my friends or
Yeah.
being better than everyone in this or that would make me somehow top
so
dog.
good.
No,
Yeah.
you were doing it for all the wrong reasons.
Right. One thing that really has also been instrumental in me finding that success in my life, and also at the same time finding the fulfillment in what I'm doing, has been largely credited to what you're doing. So I wanted you to take the last couple of moments and just talk about the society, the LFG Society, why start it, what is it? You put so much time and energy into this with the intention of helping others. It's what, I mean, anyone involved in it would agree with that, is that, what is Arjun getting out of this? Like, he's pouring into all of us and this whole community of people for what? Like, what does he get out of it? And I just think it's the coolest thing ever. So for somebody listening that's an entrepreneur, and again, this podcast is not for just real estate. It's not just for lending. It's for somebody who just wants to have more success in their life. And that could be a 9-to-5 job that they love and they just want to find more fulfillment from it, whether they want to become an entrepreneur, whether they want to scale a business, but also find peace and happiness while doing that. So talk about your society and what it means to you, why you started it, and give some information for somebody who may be interested in it.
So it started, and the reason why I do it, and that's really kind of you to say that, man. I appreciate it.
I mean it, really.
I mean, look, what I get out of it, to kind of fast forward, is seeing all the great successes or barriers or the detachment from limiting beliefs that everyone around me eventually breaks from and accomplishes something, right? Because it really comes down to, man, this definition I heard of what it means to be a good friend to somebody. Me, I'm not a good friend to you simply because I did stuff for you or you did stuff for me.
Right.
If you feel better about your life or about what you're doing or feel more inspired or more optimistic or just more full of light as a result of having spent time with me, then I'm a good friend.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah,
and you're a good
100%.
friend to me if I lead those interactions like that. The society is really about that because everyone, and it's not me, it's everyone in it. You're a part of it too. Like, everyone feels kind of lifted up from the interaction they have, even though it's limited. 95% of our interaction is all virtual.
Yep.
Every, maybe once or twice a year, some of us get together for events like this, and we're going to change that because there's so much magic when we're actually 3-dimensionally present.
Yeah.
But I wanted to create something that would have that kind of a feeling for people. The one that they could be seen, they could be acknowledged, and they would have the opportunity to have others believe in them.
Yeah.
Because that's powerful for anybody at any stage in life, no matter how successful or aspiring to be successful they are. If they're around people that believe in them and see them for what they are, there's literally no cap on what can be accomplished.
Yeah.
So that's what I get out of it.
Yeah.
What I get out of it is really watching that in other people because it fills my cup up.
Yeah.
I feel high level of fulfillment by me being there to support. I'm no super person. Like, it's not like I'm doing anything, but if I help in some way or steer by way of a conversation, then I've done my role and my job as a member of society. No pun intended. I mean, it is the society, but I mean like society at large.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like the whole human experience is all about. So that's why I started. That's why I continue to do it. It's open to anybody.
Yep.
Like, we started as a group predominantly made up of marketers and real estate and lenders because the event where we launched it out, that's all there was in the audience.
Yeah.
Since then, what I'm really excited about is there's a lot of like agency owners, there's creatives, there's athletes, there's college students, there's people that are in transitional points of their life in terms of career and they just want community.
Yeah.
And that to me is the beautiful thing. So it's continuing to grow and get more and more dynamic, more wide ranging. And my hope for it over this next year and in the following years is that it just continues to do that.
Yeah. Well, I am 100% walking proof of exactly what he's talking about. I mean, I went from one stage of life to a completely different stage, almost like that, just by, we talk about getting into the right rooms, talking to the right people. That's what you offer. That's what you provide to people that are looking for it. And maybe not even looking for it. I despised going to events before LFG in November last year. I really did. I just didn't ever get anything out of it. It was a lot of like rah, all of this stuff, maybe a good speaker here and there, but you felt something at your event. And I think it's because of where it comes from the heart. And it's different than a lot of events. A lot of events are like, we just want your admission ticket and that's it. And if you get value from it, great. If not, great. So with you, it's like you're going to get value from it because it's coming from a place that's very special from you. So for you, if you're watching or listening to this, please reach out to Arjun. I'm going to include all the links to the society and everything else in the description. So please take a look at it. Not for me, for you. Like not for you, but for you who's listening or watching, because it could literally transform your life to something that you would have never, ever imagined. So, and like I said, I say that from personal experience. I believe it. I thank you for it. So thank you, Arjun. Now, before we wrap this thing up, last words to the people watching.
I think just get around good people that, again, like kind of the whole premise of the society that believe in you.
Yeah.
Right? Take stock of who you're giving energy to and who you're spending time around. And even if that means setting some uncomfortable but necessary boundaries with people. I'm not saying you have to cut people off because of who they voted for or who you voted for. I know there's a lot of advocacy for that, but I think that's nonsense.
Yeah.
I think you can kind of compartmentalize things, but the people you keep closest to you should be those that believe in you and you believe in them.
Yeah.
And you'll find some pretty powerful magic behind that if you stick to that and keep that circle tight for 12 months.
Yeah.
I think your life can be in a dramatically different spot. So that would be my words to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. In this space, whether you're trying to grow something or scale something or start something, it's very rare to find somebody who genuinely wants to support you. Most people are just going to want to watch you fall right on your face. And so finding the people who genuinely want you to succeed is rare. You have somebody here, you have a community here who is willing to do that and wants to see you win. So reach out to them, check out the society. Thank you if you watch this or if you listen to this, and stay tuned for the next one. See ya.